Welcome to the next episode of the Existential Files. Hello, Louie.
Good morning, Matthew.
How are you today?
You're still in my house. What the fuck are you doing in my house? Can you just get out,
I
please?
should be leaving today.
Yes.
So it's again a rare time where Louie actually are able to touch each other.
Oh my God.
Not a lot of touching goes on.
There's a sweaty palm there.
Yeah, sorry about that. And but anyway, nice to be with you again. And tell us something about today's guest, Louie.
Well, I mean, there's a funny story about today's guest, because I was going through my emails and one popped up and I was like, I don't recognize this email at all. And I obviously hadn't replied to it. So apologies, Hayley, for not replying to your email. It's not that I'm super important and didn't think you were worthy of replying. I obviously had just missed it, but Hayley was asking for a podcast interview, and I wrote back and said, well, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. And since altruism is one of our things, so
reciprocal altruism.
Reciprocal altruism, indeed. Well, yeah. Hayley may not think it's reciprocal altruism.
Also, when did Hayley first contact you then?
I think about 2010.
So it's only taken.
Yeah. It was 2010.
Yeah.
No.
She got the actual date here.
Well, what can I say? It took me 12 years to do my PhD. I mean, sorry if I take some time. I mean,
time is relative.
If the thing is worth doing, it's worth doing right.
Slowly.
Yeah, slowly. Right. So, Hayley, would you like to introduce yourself? Because my introduction was a bit shit, wasn't it?
Okay. Yeah, I'm just someone who emailed you.
Yeah.
No, my name's Hayley Stevens, and I have a blog called Hayley is a Ghost, on which I talk about ghost hunting, monster hunting, cryptozoology, the paranormal, parapsychology, all kind of weird stuff, and the good points and the bad points. I also host a podcast called The Spooktator with 4 other guys, and we basically examine paranormal topics and paranormal media. And I'm also a paranormal researcher. That's why I blog. People kind of get in touch with me when they've had weird experiences, and sometimes I do site visits. Often I can just kind of work it out from home, and I try and find rational causes for the weird stuff people experience. And I used to be a ghost hunter, so I used to do the whole most haunted thing, like with EMF meters and stuff. So yeah,
that whole malarkey.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think you maybe answered the question I was going to ask towards the end of what you were saying, in terms of saying you've looked for rational explanations. Because I was going to ask, so do you believe in all this stuff then? The paranormal? Is there such a thing as the paranormal?
I don't think so, no. I've been to so many places that are alleged to be haunted, and I've met so many people who claim to have paranormal abilities or supernatural abilities, however you want to term it. And yeah, I mean, I have had some strange experiences, but nothing that to me was absolute evidence. There was always, the strange things that happened. There was always the question of, it could have been, this, or it could have been that. I just wasn't certain, because obviously I think when you have a paranormal experience, you only have a limited kind of input of what's happening around you. So there's so much that could have been that I was unaware of. So some people were happy to say, what we saw or what you described was a ghost, but I think that's a bit of a leap of logic. So yeah, nothing's really convinced me. I think, I do like it when weird stuff happens that I can't find an explanation for, but I just don't think it's evidence of something that we're not aware of.
And can I just ask, I mean, so you blog at Hayley is a Ghost, so I can just confirm with you, you're not a ghost?
I'm not a ghost. It was meant to be Hayley is a ghost hunter.
Sorry? Yeah, well, this is it. I was hoping to get a ghost. I mean, this is it.
Yeah. I know. The blog title was a typo. I was going to have it as Hayley is a ghost hunter, and I forgot to write hunter. So Hayley is a ghost has kind of stuck.
All right, it's good. I mean, Matt loves that kind of stuff, to be honest, right? He's impressed by that. But no,
as in things that weren't intended and unplanned. So,
right.
So stepping away even from the evidence, then you're saying, well, you've not come across anything that you can't explain as such, and I buy into that. I get that sense whenever I've done anything resembling those kinds of, in quotes, investigations or hearing stories. But then, in principle, do you think ghosts exist, and if so, do they represent apparitions of the dead?
No. I don't think so.
Has she not already answered this question already, though? I mean, We are listening to our guest, are we not?
Well, I was just saying, Prince, if you're saying, well, some people might go, I believe in ghosts, and I want to find proof that they exist, but fuck knows how much I try, I can't find it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or is it like saying, you know, Louie and I had a chat beforehand in terms of when people are broadly skeptical, what is it that draws them into studying the paranormal if they actually think there's nothing paranormal going on?
Yeah, I mean, some people think that ghosts aren't the dead. Some people think it's earth energies or demons, and you know, everyone has their own interpretations. And I've met people who think that houses can be haunted, but not necessarily by spirits of the dead. So it's all really complex. So yeah, I don't believe in ghosts as these things that kind of come into your house and do stuff. I do think of them as a cultural thing. So, you know, the way that we interpret things that happen very much depends on what we've kind of been raised to think. So people see ghosts and report ghosts in different ways around the globe, depending on the culture they've been raised in, and so on. But regarding how I got into all of this, I used to be a believer in ghosts, and I used to go looking for them. I used to watch Most Haunted, and the other paranormal television shows, but primarily Most Haunted. And
great show. Great sketch.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah, when we were.
Back in the day, yeah. Before it all went a bit jumping the sharky. But back when Derek Acora was kind of accused of being a charlatan and everything.
No, never.
Yeah,
never.
I know, right? It actually really did blow my little world apart, because I believed that it was all real.
Can I ask you that? So did you have a kind of an existential break when so you're saying that, you know, it couldn't be true that Derek was a charlatan, and then you came to the conclusion he was, and that blew your worldview?
A little bit, yeah. And when that all kind of came out with the whole Creed Kafer thing, I was still a teenager at this point.
That's no excuse.
No, it's not an excuse, but that's my excuse. And so that happened, and I formed a ghost hunting team. And I thought that I was being really original. I was like, aha, I'm going to form this ghost hunting team. We'll be some of the first people to do this in the country. Not. And so then we went around Wiltshire with these other people looking for ghosts. So we would do the whole turning the lights off, asking out, using EMF meters and all this stuff. And I was truly interested in it. And the more that I did that with the group, the more I got to know other people in the country who were doing it, and the more I kind of read about it, and I realized that there were alternative explanations for the things that were being witnessed and experienced and reported. And the more I kind of realized that actually the skeptics and the rationalists were barking up the right tree, I was barking up the wrong tree. And yeah, I slowly kind of lost my belief. We actually encountered a landlord at a pub faking activity. We caught him in the act. It was really kind of Scooby-Doo. And that kind of made me question, what else have we missed? What else, you know, who else behind a door pulling strings and throwing things have we missed? And
I was going to ask you the question. I mean, which do you think is worse then, or which have you encountered more of, outright fakery or delusion?
I think more delusion than fakery, but that's only because maybe I haven't caught the hoaxers and the tricksters.
And Scooby-Doo, you haven't caught everyone taking the mask off at the end.
No. That's well, I don't know. I think there have been things that have been reported that I've investigated that I think are fake, but I can't conclusively prove it. But on that ghost investigation, when he was literally caught in the room and said, "Yeah, it was me, you got me," you know, that's a real kind of unmasking in the Scooby-Doo style.
Wait for it. Wait for it, you pesky kids.
Do we know about the Creed Kafer thing? Do we want it? Because it's ringing a really tiny little bell inside my head. Do we want to talk about this kind of thing?
Let's allude to it. So we may be on another guest then, because given that a certain person we know, Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, was heavily involved in that.
Oh yes, yeah.
What? Yeah. But essentially, given that the Creed Kafer is an anagram of Derek Faker, so I think it was an attempt. Essentially, broadly says an attempt to expose Derek, and it did get in the press and so on.
And there were other similar cases as well. So it wasn't just that one incident. There were other things where information was leaked and he may have picked up on it and used it. So
well, also I think because we have done an earlier episode where we did kind of say a little bit about the most haunted phenomenon, and the very general level, sort of saying, yeah, if you're going to look for scientific evidence of this kind of stuff, then you're not really going to look on a TV program. It's not the best place to look. But
I realise that now.
Yeah,
The teenage me wasn't quite aware of that, but yeah.
So, but in some ways, Louie, then Hayley's been on a similar journey to yourself. You started off as a believer. You were very into all this, and through investigation, through your own exploration, come to the conclusion that actually, as you put it, come to the conclusion that it's all crap.
Well, that's funny because I was going to ask Hayley whether you, I mean, how did you find this process? Did you find it difficult? I mean, was it emotional? Because again, one of the things we're interested in, because we're not a parapsychology podcast, you know, we're not massively interested in, I mean, I know I'm not massively interested in debating the paranormal anymore. It's a load of rubbish. But what I'm interested in is kind of existential. Leave it alone.
I'm really distracted.
Given when this eventually goes online, there's no video, so you don't know what we've been referring to. Oh, it's got you.
Recurrent spontaneous poltergeist phenomena,
yes.
Right? Has it been an emotional journey for you?
At the beginning, when I was like, right, we're going to stop doing table tipping, we're going to stop walking around in the dark, and we're gonna make sure that the environment's more controlled, and we're gonna do proper eyewitness interviews and stuff. There was a lot of kickback from the other ghost hunters, and that was quite horrible. In that they left the group that I had formed and made their own group, and then there was a lot of bitchiness and so on. But away from that whole scene, you know, the idea of there being no ghosts and no afterlife and so on, it was a little bit difficult in that I had to accept that I wasn't going to see dead relatives again. So for my teen years, I believed that I would see my granddad again, and so to accept that wasn't true, I had to also accept that wasn't going to happen. And you know, that was fine. I came to terms with that, and because it kind of changed my worldview to a more kind of humanistic one anyway, so it became more about making the most of now. But apart from that, that was the only kind of emotional involvement in having to change my opinions.
And you would describe yourself as an atheist?
Yeah.
So,
and I was an atheist before I was a skeptic, so I was an atheist who believed in ghosts, which is a bit odd. But there we go.
Mad then.
Yeah, a little bit. But like I said, I was a teenager.
I'm only pulling you like
and also, you know,
no, it was completely mad. When I look back, I'm like, well, that wasn't very sensible.
But hey,
I think probably.
I was just going to say, you know, I did my PhD on. I tried to breed a psychic beetle for my PhD thesis. Right now, we all sometimes make bad decisions in life. That was one of them. I don't think we can necessarily blame ourselves for trying.
And all we're doing is trying to make sense of the world around us. So
yeah.
we blame for exploring those ideas. But there is a sense of then, to now that but why continue as a paranormal investigator? Why keep doing it? If you think, well, actually, we're going to learn a little bit about how people might have odd experiences and they fool themselves. Mm. But you'll almost come to the conclusion, I'm not going to find any evidence of what seems to be a ghost or something which is inexplicable. So, but why do you keep doing it?
Well, I think fundamentally there are two types of people who get involved in ghost research. And one group are ghost hunters who look for the evidence of the paranormal, and they go in looking for the ghost and they want to find out more about the ghost. And then on the other hand, you've got paranormal researchers who are looking for the facts. And so when it comes to, say, Mrs. Smith reports hearing weird noises, the ghost hunters will go in and look for the ghost and the paranormal explanation, and a paranormal researcher will look for what's actually causing it. And I think that's really important for the person who's having the experience, to have someone who will look at the rational information, because as I'm sure you guys know, there are people out there who are involved, whether they're psychics or claim to be parapsychologists or ghost hunters, who who make some absolutely ludicrous claims, which can actually be quite harmful to the people who think they're having these experiences. And there can be real kind of bad ethical situations that arise out of people going into someone's home and saying, oh yes, you're haunted by 6 ghosts, and one of them's really angry and follows your child around, and this kind of thing. And that does happen. And I think if, over the years I've kind of gained a fair bit of knowledge about what can cause these things to happen, that are just mundane everyday explanations, and if I can help someone rationalize what they think is a haunting, then I think that's a positive thing.
And how receptive do you find these people then, Hayley? I mean, my experience of shitting on people's beliefs isn't necessarily that they're very receptive to that. So, I mean, do you find that people say, if you say what you thought was granny was in fact, flatulence, does that go down very well?
I've never had that.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I've never had that particular experience. But when I give my opinions to people, I do it in a way that if they want to listen, then they've got my opinion. If they don't want to listen, that's completely their choice.
Right.
So it's absolutely, it doesn't bother me if they don't listen to what I have to say. When it comes to people trying to trick other people, then I am a little bit more vocal about my opinion on how they're doing it. So if it's a public place that's trying to kind of trick people into going on a ghost tour by faking activity, then yeah, I think fair enough. If you're making a claim, you need to provide the evidence, and if there's evidence that you've been faking stuff, then you deserve to be called out for that. But a lot of the people who contact me, they contact me knowing that I'm a skeptic and an atheist and I don't believe in ghosts. And just this morning, before we spoke, somebody tagged me in a post on Facebook. They had a strange experience overnight, and they want to know what caused it. They're not interested in the idea that it's a ghost or that the place they're staying in is haunted or anything. They want to know what caused it because they're interested in the psychology of paranormal experiences. And so they're like, Hayley, explain this. I want to know what it is. Unfortunately, I have no idea on that one. But 9 times out of 10 people are looking for the rational explanation.
And also, when you are faced with that, when someone says, oh, I had this experience, explain it, or what caused it, you think, well, I'm not, always that best place to come up with the explanation. You can suggest possibilities, and have you considered this, and have you explored that? But in some ways, when you're doing it at a distance, it's very hard to say, well, actually, this is quite clearly what caused it.
I mean, I always like that, though. I mean, obviously working in universities, I mean, I don't know about, we did used to get the same kind of things. I mean, I remember getting psychic parrots. Do you remember that psychic parrot, or the haunted parrot, and watching videos and trying to work out what was going on with them? I always quite like that stuff because I think it's almost like a Sherlock Holmes-esque mystery, and or a Scooby-Doo or something, and you're trying to work out, because obviously if it isn't paranormal, and if you don't believe, and we sometimes would, if we were open to the possibility of it paranormal, it had to be bloody good damn evidence to start. I mean, most
of the time it isn't, though, is it?
No,
you get sent video or photos, and you think, look at this, and you look at it, you go, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
What am I meant to be seeing?
Yeah. There's like a red circle, and there's nothing in the red circle. And one of the things that we find,
orbs,
which is just dust. I mean, what the fuck? I'm supposed to be impressed with that dust.
But orbs are still a huge thing. I still get sent orb photos, and I did a public talk a couple of years ago, and I was talking about how people still think that orbs are ghosts, and people can't even agree on what is a ghost. So some say orbs are, other people say they're not. And somebody stood up in the audience at that talk at the end, and he was basically, he was shouting at me that I was mischaracterizing ghost hunters. They don't believe in orbs. Orbs is not a thing. You're completely lying. But I get sent orb photos probably on a monthly basis. And if you go on like the Facebook groups of the ghost hunting teams, you'll see these orb photos, and it just blows my mind that something so basic and something that has been explained so many times is still presented as evidence. And I think that probably speaks to the desperation to find ghost evidence on their part, really.
And you were saying before we came on air, you were mentioning some recent writing, maybe it's an upcoming blog post looking at the kind of how the paranormal and ghosts are represented in the media. In some ways, they're kind of all I think probably whether it started with Most Haunted or those kinds of things where people are saying that, and also of course the advent of digital cameras.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's having the flash, isn't it, very near to the lens and so on, that you start to see these kinds of effects. But then the way it's portrayed in TV shows and so on has that consequential effect. So you kind of still exploring these relationship between how the paranormal is represented within the media.
Yeah, I think it has a huge effect. So when, for example, there's a television show in America called Ghost Hunters, who I think they were like the second show to go mainstream after Most Haunted, and they made a big deal about being more scientific than Most Haunted, even though they actually weren't. And if they use a piece of equipment on their show, then Ghost Hunters will start using it, even if it doesn't actually make any sense. And there's a show called Ghost Adventures, with what I call some ghost bros, in that they're kind of, really kind of muscular guys who wear military looking kind of clothing, and they're like, dude, did you hear that? And that kind of thing. And if they use a new gadget, then the ghost hunters use that gadget, and people start dressing like them and acting like them.
And do you watch these shows then, Hayley? Because I mean, I must admit, I'd never watch any junk like this. I couldn't. I mean, did you used to watch any of this stuff?
No, and I used to find even towards the end of my time on Most Haunted Live, because I was mainly on the live shows, is because they're long live thing, 3-4 hours or something. And of course, people must be watching these things at home, hoping, of course, something's going to happen. You can watch hours and hours of nothing happening in the hope that you're going to get just shit by something, and then thought, oh, right, the camera's moving around.
Isn't that why the orbs and things like that are given prominence? Because I mean, fuck all's happening. I mean, that glint on the screen is pretty much the best they're going to get.
That's absolutely it. And I think people do try and be scientific. So when people use EMF meters, they're trying to kind of have some kind of controlled condition that they can monitor. But then you spend, say, 6 hours in a place and nothing happens. So you start using that EMF meter as a like yes and no device. Like, if you're there, make the light come on, because it gives you a result. And I mean, I can speak from experience that going on these ghost hunts, nothing happening, it can be quite disappointing. So you do start interpreting just the most desperate stuff as a ghost. Like, oh, did you hear that floorboard creaking that we've been walking on all night? That must have been a sign. And it's only really when you kind of look back from a more rational position that you realize just how desperate you were as a ghost hunter. And I think that orbs and other phenomena that has a completely logical explanation that's still presented as evidence, I think that's why, because otherwise they can't tick their fulfillment wish list.
And if we kind of bring this also back to the kind of bigger themes of the podcast, is that you touched on this idea that you were, hoping as a teenager that maybe one day there's a possibility that, our grandparents and other relatives could actually reappear in front of us as ghosts or apparitions, whatever term you want to use. And coming to terms with that perhaps never happening, or not even more perhaps, but not happening, then it is an existential question. It reminds us of, actually, when you die, all the things point to death. That's it. So you are going to continue in some other way. You aren't going to return, and therefore, when you lose people who you're very close to. So again, family members, close friends. Then to have a sense that you will not see them again is quite a big existential question to deal with, and that's where you can understand psychologically, existentially, why people might say, "Well, I'd love to believe there is something there because it helps me deal with."
Yeah.
I mean, that was my question as well, because I mean, just do you have sympathy for them then, Hayley?
I do. Well, I don't know if I
pathetic, horrible skeptic.
I know. I'm just pathetic.
You're horrible.
I need to get over it. I understand why people believe, and and I understand how difficult it is to kind of come out of that belief because of the cognitive dissonance that you experience. And so that's why when skeptics say, oh, Sally Morgan had an earpiece and blah, 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 people who believe in Sally Morgan don't go, oh, that makes sense. They go, no, I love Sally. You leave her alone. You're being mean. Because the conflicting information is too difficult or too horrible for them to have to consider. They don't want to have to work through that belief and come out the other end leaving it behind. So I'm a little bit more sympathetic, but I still do think that if you make a claim then you should prepare to be questioned about it and to put the evidence forward. And so I understand why, but I'm not just going to accept people's claims. So I do still kind of debate with people, and I do still get quite a bit of abuse on my blog because I'm questioning what fundamentally makes a big part of someone's life. But if they're making the claim, then they should really expect that.
Absolutely, and it's this questioning attitude, I think, which is central to us all, isn't it? Is that we're faced with existence, we're faced with life, and at the very least we can ask questions about it, what it means to be alive, what it means to die, what it means to have an experience which is on the face of it hard to explain, and actually, well, let me interrogate it, let me explore, let me question.
I mean, we've talked about, I also think it's important that many generations have believed these things, and you kind of believe them because your parents believe them, and so, and I think it is important for generations to question what is established fact, and say, well, actually, just because you couldn't step outside yourself and see the world for what it is, it doesn't mean I have to do that. And I think actually it's very brave to question what is essentially somewhat the status quo, which is the idea that you go to church and you're going to see people again in heaven, and unfortunately it may not be the nice answer. And I'm sure I'd like to see people that have died. I'm sure we'd all like to see people that have died, but unfortunately it is what it is, which is.
But I think there's also a completely different thing to that, though, that people don't consider, like when they believe in ghosts, is the fact, it's nice to think that maybe your gran comes to visit sometimes, but actually, if you think about it, if you were a ghost, if you died and you came back as a ghost, right, we know that ghosts don't communicate well if they do exist, because there is no solid evidence. So the idea that my gran might just be stood here now going, Hayley, why aren't you talking to me? That's horrible.
Or watching me have a wank.
Yeah,
but
like
in
the bathroom.
It's always these Savva.
I'm sorry. But it's true though. It's like the ceiling cat.
So now we've got an image
the ceiling cat.
Hayley's gran watching you
masturbate. Well, she might enjoy it. There you go.
Think...
Who knows?
I'm sorry.
But
I think we just change something else here.
The idea that ghosts might come back and that there are dead relatives and so on isn't actually that nice. And there is, do the bad people come back too? Like Fred West, his ghost out there roaming around somewhere. And, and then there's a whole ethical question of, do ghosts have agency? Should they be able to vote? What are ghost rights? And it just doesn't make any sense. And we can kind of present it in a really nice way that it's they're always with you, but actually they're always with you is a little bit sinister and horrible, and it kind of goes back to the X-Men. I don't know if you guys are into like the Marvel and stuff, but the X-Men can walk through walls and go invisible and stop time and move things with their minds, and some of the humans want to stop that. So why don't we want to stop the ghosts from being able to do exactly the same things? What is stopping a ghost from robbing a bank? These are not the questions that ghost hunters are asking.
So we started off with, they're starting to say equal rights for ghosts. Now it's actually, let's not give them equal rights.
Fuck ghosts.
Let's put them in jail.
Yeah, fuck ghosts.
I'm just saying, if they're real, there are some questions we should be asking. But yeah.
We'll save to see if any evidence comes in they indeed turn out to be real. So on that note, should we say thank you very much, Hayley? Really appreciate your time today. And hopefully speak to you again very soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.